Hey everybody, welcome back to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel, and welcome to another installment in Questions and Coffee with David. I hope you have your cup of coffee and you're joining me this morning. It is literally 4:43 a.m. and I am up again early this morning answering all the questions that came in over the last couple of days, and I'm going to try to answer some of those in this video. So if you want one of your questions answered in a future Questions and Coffee segment, please send your questions to info@HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. Once again, that's info@HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, and I'll be sure to get your question answered in an upcoming video. So before we get to the first question, if you would do me a big favor, please hit that subscribe button below if you like what you see in this video. Also head on over to Home Recording Made Easy over at Facebook, facebook.com/HomeRecordingMadeEasy, and follow me there, as I'm always posting content that is not necessarily part of my YouTube channel. Also follow me on Twitter at HomeRecordingMadeEasy, and I really appreciate that as well. So now let's move on to question number one. Okay, question number one comes from John, and John writes, Dave, thanks for your videos on the Raven. I'm like you in a way that I found that it is somewhat frustrating at the start. I've had mine for about a week and I'm starting to wonder if it's right for me. What are your thoughts now that you've had it a while? Well, thanks, John, for writing in. And I get this question an awful lot. I have, as a lot of you people know, I have a few videos, I think 3 or 4 videos on my YouTube channel when I first got the Slate Digital Raven MTI about 1.5 to 2 years ago. I did an unboxing video and I did a couple of videos showing my first experiences kind of in real time. Since that time, I have sold the Raven, and I never took the videos down because I felt that they were helpful to some people. And the main reason why I sold the Raven, John, is because it just really wasn't for me. I've talked about this a lot on my YouTube channel. I found, just like what you're seeming to find, it was very frustrating. The touch accuracy wasn't as good as I would have hoped, and I don't necessarily contribute that to the Raven itself. I really think the main problem with the Raven, or that kind of touch technology, is right now, the DAWs, no matter which one you use, really isn't designed with touch capability in mind. Some of the manufacturers say it is designed, and there are some features with touch that will work okay. But where I found my major frustration using the Raven wasn't so much with the mixing with the faders. That seemed to work okay, even though, again, the touch wasn't that accurate. It was really more around using the edit screen and editing, doing things like cutting audio events or regions, doing fade-ins and fade-outs, so on and so forth. I found that you had to be very, very accurate with the way you would touch the touch screen, and that became a real problem because if you weren't super accurate, you couldn't always get done on the screen what you were intending to have done. And what I found a lot of times is that you can inadvertently nudge audio events or regions excuse me, out of place, and that would really screw up the mix. So I found that it really slowed down my workflow, and I used it for a few solid months, and I tried it with both Logic, I used it with Studio One, I tried it with Pro Tools, and I just did not find that it was for me. I think the technology is great. I think Slate did an amazing job at the first crack at a real touchscreen made by an audio company, and I think down the road, if they design the DAWs in mind with this kind of technology, I think it'll be a lot better, but I just didn't really like it, and I sold it. So I didn't find it to be helpful to me, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be helpful for you or for other people, because I do know people that have it that really love it, and it all comes down to personal preference. I prefer more of a hardware control surface, which, as of the recording of this video, I am now using the PreSonus Studio Live 32 Series 3 mixer, and I find that to be much more easy to work with and much more familiar to me as far as a control surface goes. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks for writing in, John, and now let's move on to question number 2. Okay, question number 2 comes from Marty, and Marty writes, Hey Dave, quick question. I noticed that you're moving to the Studio Live for DAW control. Did you find yourself not using the Unison pre's on the Apollo or the plugins? How is the sound compared to the Apollo? Thanks. Well, thanks for writing in. Yes, I have moved to the PreSonus Studio Live Series 3 mixer, the 32-channel mixer for my DAW surface control duties. Although, as of the recording of this video, the Studio Live 32 is not really a full-on surface control for Studio One or for any other DAW. That is being worked on by PreSonus, and that's going to be coming out hopefully over the next couple of months. So I'm kind of told, but we'll have to see. Hopefully, at least this year, 2017. So right now I'm kind of using it in more of a hybrid way. It's not really a surface control, but I'm just getting used to the mixer. Now, as far as the unison pre's on the Apollo, because my studio these days is really not a tracking studio anymore, I'm more of a mixing and mastering house, and also education with home recording made easy and private training. And therefore, I don't really do any recording, so to speak, or a lot of tracking. So the unison pre's are really not something that I really need. I've used them a little bit in the past, and I thought they were great. But as far as how does it sound, the Studio Live compared to the Apollo, the straight-on mic pre's, I think they sound the same. The mic pre's and the Studio Live are the same mic pre's that are in the Studio 192, their audio interface, which I have used, and those sound fantastic. So I don't really hear a difference between the mic pre's on the Apollo and the mic pre's on the Studio Live or on the 192. To me, they're one and the same. Are they the same exact preamp? No, probably not. Is one better than another? I don't really hear the difference, so I don't know, what it really matters. For me, anyway. So I think the Studio Live, from a mic pre standpoint, sounds as good as the Apollo. I do use Universal Audio plugins still, but I use them not with my Apollo because I'm selling my Apollo, but with my satellite box, Universal Audio satellite system. I have a quad and an octo Thunderbolt device, and so I have plenty of DSP power for my Universal Audio plugins, and I still think that the Universal Audio plugins are the best plugins on the market, and I use them 85 to 95% of the time. But I am moving to the Studio Live 32 for DAW surface control when that becomes available. So thanks for writing in, and now let's head on over to question number 3. All right, question number 3 comes from Mark, and Mark writes, "Hi, just saw your Kemper unboxing video and was curious about how it's been treating you. I am thinking about buying one strictly for home studio, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on the product. Best, Mark." Well, Mark, thanks for writing in. And yes, I did have, and I do have a couple of videos on the Kemper. And just like kind of with the Raven a few questions ago, the Kemper is no longer in my studio. And it's not because I didn't like the Kemper. The Kemper actually physically died on me. It was having all kinds of flaky issues with the computer or something in the computer part of the Kemper, and it died. And I used it for a couple of months prior to having this failure. And so here's my thoughts on the Kemper. If you're someone that's in the studio, and as you say, you're strictly going to be using it for the studio, and let's say you do a lot of reamping of guitars in your tracks. Let's say you record a lot of guitars and you're looking for a wide palette or a wide variety of different guitar tones and that kind of thing. I think the Kemper is fantastic. It sounds amazing. The best digital kind of modeling that I've ever heard, although it's really not a digital modeler, it's copying the sound or the profile of a real amp. So it's not like an Axe Effects in that way, but they're similar. But from a sound quality standpoint, fantastic, especially if you use third-party profiles, such profiles from Michael Britt, and I think Chop Tones is another one, and Top Jimmy might be the third one that I used. Those models sound as close to the real thing as anything I've ever heard. So sound amazing. The thing that I found, which was way overkill for me as far as the Kemper goes, is I'm not a guy who needs to have a ton of guitar tones. I only need 2 or 3 different style tones, and for my own personal playing, I'm pretty locked into 1 or 2 types of tones, and I don't need that wide variety. So I felt that the Kemper was kind of overkill. Not to mention, there is a ton of deep editing and tweaking you can do with the Kemper, which some people find really great, and they love that kind of thing. And some people like myself, a little bit more simplistic, finds it to be a little bit too cumbersome. So once it died, I sent it back to Sweetwater, because Sweetwater is where I buy all my gear, and I've talked about that before, and they were really great. And it was about probably 60 days or so I had it before it died, maybe 90 days. Took it back, gave me a full credit, and I just decided at that time that the Kemper was just really way overkill for what I needed. So I went back to a regular tube amp and I picked up a Friedman, which I really, really love. That Marshall-y kind of sound is really my kind of sound, and that's what I use. So again, if you're someone who's using it in the studio, who needs a wide variety of guitar tones, the Kemper, hands down, amazing sound. and you don't have to go out and buy all the different types of amps. If you're someone who's really only need one or two types of tones, or you really don't want to get in there and really do a whole lot of tweaking, then I would say maybe you want to stick with more of a tube amp or two, because it's a heck of a lot cheaper than buying a Kemper. Kemper's pretty pricey. So those are my thoughts on it. It all depends on your workflow and what you need, but I don't have it anymore because it died. I sent it back and I never replaced it. So thanks, Mark, for writing in. I hope that answers your question. And now let's head on over to question number 4. Okay, last question for this video comes from Sargon, and Sargon writes, "Hello David, hope all is well, and again thank you for all your hard work and knowledge you share with all of us viewers, greatly appreciated." Well, thanks Sargon, I really do appreciate that, and thanks for watching and thanks for your support. My question is regarding gain staging. I have always followed your method of gain staging whenever I'm recording. However, I was wondering, when I am setting levels for any instrument and I keep the levels around a negative 12 dB, do I still need to gain stage and drag each track down individually in Studio One, or will this be adequate? Thank you. I'm a little confused on the way your question is worded, but let me just kind of tell you my thoughts on gain staging, and that'll probably answer your question. So what you're saying is right. I recommend that whether you're mixing and you're bringing in tracks into your mixing session and you're setting up your gain staging, or whether you're recording tracks into your DAW, you want to try to be around a negative 10, negative 12 dB. You want to record on the conservative side. So when you're setting your input levels on your audio interface and you're playing, let's say, your guitar, and you're setting those levels at the highest point and the hardest strums or the hardest attack on the guitar or on a vocal, you want to be around a negative 10, negative 12. That'll give you plenty of headroom when you get to mixing to add things like EQ, compression, and you don't get into any kind of distorted digital clipping, which is a bad thing, right? We all know about that. So whether you're mixing or whether you're recording, you just set those levels based on what you're doing. As far as dragging down the tracks, you don't really need to do that if you set it right on the way in. I hope that makes sense. And if you do that on every track, the cumulative effect of all those tracks at around a negative 10, negative 12 is probably going to start you off a little bit louder than that on the master fader. And again, you could just bring down the faders in your DAW a little bit to kind of offset that. It doesn't have to be exactly negative 12. Again, these are just ballpark numbers, but the moral of the story is you just want to record at conservative levels, because if you do that, you're not going to have problems down the road when you get to the mixing and the mastering stage. So I hope that kind of answers your question. It sounds like you're on the right track. You don't need to get too crazy about it. Just set those levels on your interface when you're recording so that the highest peaks of whatever you're trying to record is somewhere around a negative 10, negative 12, and you should be fine. So thanks for writing in, and that's it for this week's Questions and Coffee with David video. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and send your questions into info@homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I'll be sure to put your question in a future video. Also, again, please hit that subscribe button. Please follow me on Facebook. Please follow me on Twitter and leave comments and interact with me. And I really do appreciate all your support. And until the next video, this has been David with HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, and I will speak to you guys all soon. Take care.